And good evening, and welcome to the happenings in Medfield. As you may be aware, here at Medfield TV, we have the opportunity of sitting with selectmen relative to situations that exist in Medfield. Mark?
How you doing? Nice to see you again, Jack.
And Derek.
Jack, how are you? Nice to see you.
There has been a number of questions asked, and so I'm going to start with one of the basic questions, and I'm sure that Mark Fisher has an awful lot of answers. The state hospital.
So Jack, so things are really kind of coming to a head here with the state hospital. We're very excited. It's been a busy year. I think everyone knows that with town meeting and things like that. But we're getting down to the wire here as far as getting the land disposition agreement signed that will transfer the land from the state over to the town of Medfield. So the land disposition agreement is kind of the state version of a purchase and sale agreement. If you were buying a house, it's the equivalent, only this one, of course, is much more complicated, and there's reams and reams of papers and exhibits and things like that. So the state hospital negotiating committee is in the final stages of kind of tying up any loose ends and some of the wording and stuff on the land disposition agreement. So that should be ready to be signed this month. We're hoping it'll get signed before the end of November, and then we can have the passing on the land so that the town will own the state hospital land by early December, which is great news. Pretty exciting stuff. You know, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
It
a
is a
lot
big,
of land there.
Big deal. Mark, one question was given to me. Now that they go through the elections, you've got a new governor, perhaps new committees and so forth. That will not affect the situation that is existing now as far as the state hospital is concerned, will it?
No, that it does not. No, that is correct. Because the legislation that was signed that allowed the transfer of land, from the state to us was taken care of in the last session before their term ended this summer. So no change in leadership will have any effect on that. And that's why it's kind of crucial that we get it signed and get it put to bed, this year and stuff like that before new administration comes in.
Well, what is your thoughts on the actual takeover of the land, going through the necessities and so forth? Would that happen next year sometime, or?
No, it'll happen really right away. So we're hoping, by December, early December, the town will own the property, will be in charge, and will be taking over, and it's town property from then on.
Oh,
so we'll have the police chief will be in charge of, obviously in charge of security and stuff, and the fire chief will be, they've always had to do that anyways as far as any potential fire hazards, but so we'll be taking over ownership of the property, and then it's up to us.
What's the first step for the town after taking ownership of the property?
What we're going to do is we're in the process, we have a state hospital planning committee, quite a few members on that with a number of resources. So their first order of business is that they've sent out getting ready to send an RFP to hire a firm to develop a master plan. So to help the town develop a master plan for the state hospital. So that's really going to be the first order of business there. So for us to go through that right away and take the next few months really to get that process going, and obviously have the town involved heavily with a bunch of meetings, public meetings and things like that, and really kind of build a plan that everyone in town is going to be comfortable with, so we can move forward, and then we can kind of go from there. So that's the first step.
Now, within that master plan that you're talking about, negotiating with, putting together, relative to what I had a conversation with a friend, and I was talking to you before we came on camera, historic commissions. What's this about the historic one?
Sure. Yeah, well, basically the state hospital is an historic district up there. It was developed and set aside. So we've got a couple of commissions that will be overseeing and will have input into the redevelopment process because of the number of historic buildings up there. You've got the State Mass Historic Development Commission, I believe is their name, and then we also have Medfield's own Historic District Commission. So both of those entities will have a say as far as what the plan looks like. what buildings will get redeveloped, renovated, what buildings will not be able to be saved. They'll be too old and will need to come down. So that will be, obviously a very involved process, because there's a
Sounds
number
like
of
it.
buildings up there, that you have to kind of deal with, that are very old and very, very beat up.
Well, I understand that you've had people go through some of those buildings and how they have found a good percentage of them are worth renovating, or it's hard to say.
It's kind of think all ranges. We've had a little bit of preliminary work done, and we'll probably have to have some more work done, more extensive things. But the buildings have not been occupied, have not been heated for a long time since the hospital closed, and really nothing's been done really to kind of keep them up other than being boarded up. So I would assume that they're in tougher shape than what we would have probably thought. Like anything else, it would be the same thing if you left your house unheated and unoccupied for 10 or 15 years. It's going to be in pretty tough shape if someone's going to try to come in and want to do anything with it and try to rehabilitate it and stuff like that.
I had one lady say to me, "You're going to save the chapel, I hope."
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really everyone's intent and purposes. I mean, that is the centerpiece of the core campus up there. So that certainly is, in everyone's eyes, very, very important to be saved, even if it's very difficult to do and perhaps maybe not as economically, proper to do it. I think that's probably where, that'll be the main focus there, to save that building, certainly.
So overall, as I asked before, relative to the property, it's just a matter of short period of time before things are consummated.
Yep. So we're really right down to the wire. It's been great, and I just can't stress it enough. We always have a lot of great people that step forward to volunteer all the time to help the town out, that are experts in different fields and stuff like that. So it's been terrific. The negotiating committee, the people are almost all in the real estate field, have developed things, or are used to negotiating land deals. So it's something they do all the time, and would be a loss, obviously, if we didn't have people like that. It'd be so difficult to do, with trying to wing it,
Well, I know that you have had, and in fact, I've had the opportunity of interviewing two of them, relative to, they've been going along about the hospital for a good many years.
Yeah.
And you have regular commissions now. Josh, question, what do you think? You've been following this for some time yourself. What is your overview?
Well, I think it's great that it's finally coming to fruition, that it's able to, it seems so long ago now that the town meeting vote approved the purchase, and everybody obviously was following along through the whole legislative process, and I think it's great to finally see it coming to an end, and then the process, which is probably the bigger process, is deciding now what to do with the property and to move forward with that. And I think that's the exciting part, is the opportunity now for the town to have a say in what they can do with that property. And I think it'll be great to sort of put this part of it aside, put the negotiations aside, and have ownership and be able to move forward with what to do with the property, which I think is still sort of up in the air at this point.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be very interesting to see. We've had, as you know, we've had some groups get together, and we've done some preliminary strategic plans on the property, and certainly, housing is a very important need that we've all talked about, as far as it'd be one of the key components up there for seniors and more affordable housing. It'll be important to incorporate those needs into the plan, and we'll see where that goes going forward. The property is almost essentially all cleaned up now too, and that's another thing I wanted to just mention briefly. Is, they were in the last phase of cleaning up the C&D area, essentially the dump. That the dump that's down along the banks of the Charles River. So they're working very hard right down doing that now. The state is finishing up that cleanup, and they've cleared away a lot of the underbrush and the growth. They're going to replant that and make it a beautiful park and beautiful fields that kind of flow right down to the Charles River. It's opened up. You've got beautiful vistas there. So the property's getting better and better. I mean, it's just getting really nice looking.
Sounds great. I understand out there why, when they finish that factor, people can have a picnic.
Yeah.
They got canoes that they can go up and down the Charles with.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
gonna be
something
very-
else again, you know?
Yeah, it's going to be very, very nice. We're pretty excited about that. I mean, that's really come together really nice after a lot of battles, a lot of hard work.
Well, I will say one thing, Mark. You people have worked awfully hard relative to the state hospital and the committees.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a lot of work and many, many years. I don't even want to go back and start to count them, but I'm glad it's coming now to a head where the finalization is there. So all of a sudden, you
Yeah.
people can say, well, it's all ours, and
Yeah,
let's
now,
go.
now, now
with
we got to
that.
get going. Yeah, now it gets to the scary part. Which is
Yeah.
now what do we do? Now what do we
Now
do
we
with
can
it?
do with it.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So that will be initiated within the master plan.
Exactly. Yeah, and there'll be a lot of community input on that. There'll be a number of public meetings, obviously, as we go forward and stuff like that. Yeah, so that we can get everyone. Everyone's got to buy in on it. I mean, they do. I mean, the town's got to. Everyone's got to agree that that's what the town
Well,
wants.
no, that's understandable.
Yeah.
It offers the town a lot of flexibility too, because there's a lot of different things that property can be used for.
Yeah,
And
it's
you-
so big.
You've already
Yeah.
heard it from a lot of people,
Yeah.
whether it was at town meeting or just
Yeah.
people in talking about that property.
Yeah.
Everybody's got very varied ideas as to what can be done there. So I think
Yeah.
it actually offers the town a lot of possibilities,
Oh,
which
sure.
at the is good, and at the same
time
time,
it's hard. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
that
exactly.
actually makes it more difficult because of the
trying to fit everything in
Right,
together,
right.
try to, and that's always hard. The democratic process is always so messy and stuff, trying to fit everyone's needs and meet everyone's needs. But we'll get through it somehow, as we always do. We'll get there. We'll get there.
One question, water tower,
Yep.
digging under the tracks. What's the story about that?
Well, I think we're almost there. We've part of the for putting in the new water tower up at the state
Yes.
hospital was laying all new piping and stuff that connects to that, and they've got it all in except for I think one last little stretch where they have to go under the railroad tracks at the bottom of the sledding hill, hospital hill, before you get to 27. So that I would assume will be done this month. I think that CSX, the railroad, has signed off on it. They've got the people that need to come to oversee that work. There's specialists that have to come from upstate New York to watch that. So I think we're almost there. And that'll be the last section of pipe to connect, so that the piping will all be in. And then up on the hill itself, I know they've been starting to prepare the site for the new tower to go in. I think they want to get the foundation and all that stuff poured, before the winter time, and get that all set and stuff like that. So I know they're doing a lot of site work up there, because the new tower is going to go right next to the old one. And then we can go get forward and getting a new water tower built, which is going to be really nice. Really,
just
really
for people who don't. I mean, how important is that process, and how important is
to have the water
to
tower.
have the new water tower?
Yeah, basically the town, we've got two water towers in Medfield. We've got the Mount Nebo water tower, and then we have the state hospital water tower. The current state hospital water tower is not functioning. It's very, very old, and it's also too low. When they were initially designed, its elevation does not match Mount Nebo. So to have equal water pressure amongst the town, you have to have both water towers at the same elevation above sea level. So the new water tower will go in, it'll be up high enough so that it matches Mount Nebo, and then we'll have two functioning water towers to kind of supply the town, so that you can pull one water tower offline when you need to and work on the other one. Obviously you gotta have a backup. So it's going to be great to have that, because Mount Nebo is going to need some maintenance, within the next 5 years or so. It's going to need to be probably repainted and spruced up a bit, and this will allow it to do it. So it's a big deal, very, very important thing, and the Water and Sewer Board has done a fantastic job, getting the proposals, the bids in, and really kind of supervising that work. So it's good. Very important part of our infrastructure to do that.
Regarding the update on the safety buildings.
Yeah. So that's coming along great. Another project. Obviously, we've got a lot of stuff going on. The Permanent Building Committee, now that the DPW is done, the garage is done, it's open, it's fabulous. Encourage people to stop by and check out the new town garage if they haven't been down there. They had an open house a few weekends ago, and it's a really, really nice building. Came out terrific. But anyways, next stop is the public safety building, the police and fire station. So the plan is right now that they're kind of finishing up the specifications and the plans so that they can put that out to bid, so they can get firm bids in on the building, and they can bring a number to a special town meeting in March. I think early March. There'll be a special town meeting just on the public safety building. And if that gets approved at that, then it would go to the elections that we have, the town elections in March, to go for a debt override for that. So that's the next project the permanent building committee's working on, is to get that done. Just like with the TBW garage, when we brought it to town meeting, they had a number, so everyone knew when they were voting for something, this is what it's going to cost, as opposed to saying, well, we might think it might cost this, but we're not quite sure. So they were coming along very nicely. The building would be in the same spot that it's at now, it would just be larger and stuff like that. So they would put it on the same footprint. It's going to stay right where it is. It would just come out closer to Dale Street, kind of push out through those parking lots there. So so that's the next project.
Is there any estimate as to what it may cost? I mean, I know it's still, early in that process,
Right.
but are there any
Yeah.
estimates?
Yeah, it'll be less than 20 million, you know what I mean? So it's probably in the 15 to 20 million range is what we've heard and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see what the bids come in and see what
Right.
it looks like. But I think that's what it's going to cost. And that's really what they've been kind of estimating all the way along and stuff, it's just the way it is. It's a lot of money, but everything's a lot of money in Massachusetts.
That's true.
Building
Well,
Massachusetts, it's just okay.
We filmed the town garage. That is a beautiful building.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something else again. And people, I was talking at the opening.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were just astounded as to, one fellow said, well, we just thought it'd be a little better than a lean-to, but my Lord, that is one beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
building.
Yeah, I think the important thing for people to understand too is that while the garage did cost a lot of money, the materials it's built out of, it's built to last. I mean, you're looking at a 50 to 100 year building. You know what I mean? Easily 50 years, if not more. All you're looking at is you've got cinder blocks. All the material is very durable. You look at the trim around the windows. It's limestone and concrete. So it's built so that it's going to be here for a long, long time, which is what you want to do. Try to do it right the first time if you can.
Okay. Now, my understanding, utilizing that building for the fire department when this other program is done,
Right.
and then the police department is moving up to where the townhouse used to be when they were renovating the other.
On West Street. There,
Yeah, on West Street.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
where they're
So that's the plan, yeah. So that will work out good. Well, it takes 2 years or so, I think, to build a public
Yeah.
safety building. I think that's probably what the cycle is, because it's a pretty complicated building. You got a lot of stuff going on
Well,
there.
yeah, talking with the chief, there's so much communication involved. And radio equipment and things of that nature is going to take an awful lot of work to reinstall,
Oh,
because-
definitely, yeah.
and have
Yeah.
it working.
And that's part of the need for the new building too, is just the communications have evolved so much since when it was initially
Yeah,
built. They
That's
just,
very true.
it's just,
That's very, very
it's
true.
time, I think,
Oh, it is time.
to bring
Yeah.
it up to bring it
Yeah.
up to date. And I think that's not exclusive to Medfield. I think
No.
there's a lot of public safety officials across the state and across the country who are probably dealing with the same thing. But I think that's maybe the biggest component of it, is to try to bring the building up to modern standards for safety and communications.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing, yeah. And I think the people that have been down that have toured the building know, safety issues are a big thing. As you're
Right.
well aware, the fire trucks are jammed in there. They're like a foot, 2 feet apart. Very, very dangerous for the on-call firefighters if they come in and they have to try to get dressed next to all this moving equipment.
Right.
Very potential for a disaster to happen if you're not careful. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we've been discussing a little bit about, number one, money,
Yeah.
very important, and buildings. And so that comes to this point. Mark, the annual budget.
Yep, so it's budget season again. We had to kick off at our last selectmen's meeting, with the warrant committee and all the department heads. So they'll be submitting their budgets this year, and the warrant committee will be getting back in action in December and primarily in January as they start to review the town budgets for annual meeting, the end of April. So things look, there's never enough money, and it's just the way it is. You always have to kind of work through things and stuff like that. But there certainly there will not be any overrides for operational overrides. That just isn't acceptable. So the towns, as well, all the budgets have to, the town budgets have to work within the 2.5% cap, and we'll get it done. I'm sure.
Any indication relative to state as far as a little bit of money here and there for Medfield from the state?
Nothing yet. Our assumption's usually always it's about the same. we get a little lucky, we might get literally a couple more dollars.
That's what I say.
Yeah, it's just but it literally be a little bit, enough to
little
go buy a
bit.
cup of coffee, I think,
Yeah, No, I don't think you'd be able to afford a donut and a cup of coffee, but I mean, that was my intention. I was just wondering what was happening with the budget, because now you've got a new governor.
Yes.
You've got
And you always wear it,
the entire thing is going to be changed.
Yep.
And so consequently,
You never, I know, you never know. But we would assume that things will stay roughly about the same, Paul. You can kind of guess. Unfortunately, Medfield we're always considered to be a wealthy community. So once you're a wealthy community, characterizes that, you really don't ever get any extra help for anything.
They haven't indicated, they indicate that Medfield, as you may know also, Josh, that they indicate that Medfield is a very wealthy area.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking to the lady at the food cupboard.
Yeah.
And they will need more this time than they had last year.
So, yeah.
And for donations of food and money.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, so we're a very wealthy community?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because when you get an increase in food distribution relative to the cupboard, and they're worried. They are very concerned that there will be enough to go around.
Yeah.
Especially this time of the year, because the pre-holiday season is always, one of the toughest, because during the holiday season, there's a lot of food drives, there's a lot of giving during the holiday seasons naturally. And then this pre-Thanksgiving season is very difficult for them, because people sort of forget about it for a couple of months before the holidays, and then they start to donate quite a bit more. So right now is an especially difficult time for not only the Medfield food cupboard, but for food pantries. For food pantries in general.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
And I know that what I've heard, that the scouts and people are participating in a food drive relative to try to bring it up percentage-wise. So it works out.
I think the schools have one. The Cub Scouts are doing one. I just got a notice today from a 4-H club that just donated 900 pounds of food to the food cupboard.
That's excellent.
So it's great to see. I mean, that's one of the things that I in speaking with Beth Eby and these last couple of months, as she was stepping aside, Medfield gives back quite a bit. The food cupboard does receive quite a bit of support. But like we said, obviously this is a good time for those food drives and things to be going on.
That's very, very important, I think. We've talked about the new water tower. We've talked about the state hospital and other areas. Mark, is there anything within circles that you'd like to discuss besides what I've been asking?
Well, I don't know. Boy, I tell you, it's been pretty hectic and stuff. It's all consuming, time consuming. I guess the big thing, and I think Medfield TV is going to try to make sure they post that too, is that the state hospital development committee does have a website out there. So it's www, obviously, mshvision.net. So it's Medfield State Hospital Vision.net. So MSH, I can't say that too well, Vision.net, but that's their website out there. That's the official website for the development committee. So you'll be able to go out there. You can see the meeting minutes will be out there, all kinds of historical data and everything that's going on, so you can keep up to date for that. So I know they're gonna really work on really heavily promoting that and really trying to make sure everyone knows, gets informed. That's the biggest thing, I think, is getting the word out so everyone knows what's going on.
Very
important. So they're
important.
gonna work on that. They're gonna really try to focus on that quite a bit.
Now, you were saying that in one particular case, you're going to have a special town meeting relative to the fire and police
station
building, right?
Yep.
When will that take place?
And that should be in the beginning of March. So that's the beginning, middle of March, I think, is what we're looking for. Certainly, it's too big of a project to try to do at town meeting, because you always have too much other stuff going on. It's very important to kind of pull it off and have it as a separate night. So that's what they're looking for, so that if it does pass at that special town meeting, they can put the override ballot on with the town elections at the end of March. So you can kind of piggyback it there. Mm-hmm. So that can be, so if it does pass, that can be a ballot question. So when people are in voting for the town elections, they can also vote for the new public safety building. So that's the plan, and that's what the committee is really, backing up from that deadline to kind of get it to that
I
point,
see.
stuff like that. So, yeah.
I wanted to say, in behalf of some of the people that I've talked to, the veterans, that Ron Griffin, the breakfast was an excellent breakfast, and they really enjoyed it. And then over to Baxter Park.
Yep.
So I was going to say, how did you people enjoy Veterans Day?
Very, very nice day, and I think Ron and everyone does such a great job now. It really is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good, and I think we're really building more momentum to making sure that the day's special and making it more special. I think in the past it's kind of gotten shifted
Very
with
true,
things.
very true.
Because it falls on, on whatever the day it is. It's not a 3-day weekend. It's not as big of a holiday, and it really should be. It should be a big deal. I mean, a really big deal.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I like the way that Medfield handles it because it's a much more unique ceremony than it is in some of the other towns. Not that the other towns aren't also observing Veterans Day correctly, but I like the luminary idea and having it at twilight rather than having it in the morning like most do.
Yeah.
Just gives it a unique feel and makes it special. And it really is I thought it was just a strong ceremony and it was a great way to honor veterans.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I thought it was done very, very well. And then at Baxter Park, Mrs. Doucette and set up with the auxiliary, and you had all the lights. I thought it was just done beautifully at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, once again, the situations that are existing, we've got the state hospital.
Yep.
We've got now the new buildings relative to the fire department and police department. And we've discussed that. The old clock on the wall tells me, as it usually does, we've got a little bit of time. And so I normally like to devote that to our selectman, Mark Fisher, and the press with Josh of the Hometown Weekly. Comments before we say goodnight.
Yeah. I would just say it's like I've talked about before. It's Medfield's a wonderful town. It's a great town. And one of the things that makes it very, very special is the sense of community and that people always step up to volunteer. When there's a need, people come through, whatever it is, they give a lot and it makes it very special. So that is the biggest joy that I get serving as a selectman is just watching and kind of being able to interact with so many people that volunteer on so many different levels, whatever it is, whether it's dealing with kids or sports or the veterans or different town projects. I get a great joy out of that. It's just terrific seeing it's a community. It's a little community, and we try very hard to take care of ourselves and always do the right thing. Everyone's always trying to do the right thing, and I just love it. I mean, that's a great part of being able to volunteer in town government. It's great. It's not political, which is great. I really don't think this town is very political as far as local town politics. Obviously we have our little fights. We get personality conflicts, but we're not as political, I think, as a lot of other towns. No one ever talks about whether you're a Democrat or Republican when you serve in town government. It just never comes up. We don't. It's just everyone's just trying to serve. And trying to do the best we can as the town. So I love it. It's great. I really enjoy it a lot. I do.
Thank you. Josh?
Well, to sort of piggyback off of that idea as well, I think right now we talked about it with the food cupboard, and it's not just in town government that people in Medfield are willing to give back. They're giving back in so many different ways. With Pete here last time, we were talking about the volunteer awards, the Medfield Foundation coming out with their annual awards. And in this week's paper, I've got Dale Street Schools doing a month worth of giving back to a foundation that was created by a Medfield resident. Girl Scouts running a collection drive for Cradles to Crayon and for the food cupboard. And I think it's great to see a community that wants to help out as much as Medfield does. Right. A community that is able to give back. We talked about Medfield being considered a wealthy community, but it's also a community that's willing to help out those who aren't. And I think that's great. And I think that's the fun part of doing my job as well, as being able to see all of those people and their willingness to help out. I think that's great.
particularly the
Thank
kids
you.
too, you know, seeing
Right.
the kids really involved, you know, the parents kind of showing the kids what the, you know, why it's important to get involved and to help, you know, so
Better
you really
believe
see
it.
that
That's
a lot.
very important.
Oh, very important. You know, it's great.
I do want to add to myself by saying I want to thank you very much. And as far as the selectmen meetings are concerned, I think you people do a very, very good job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Very good job. The Hometown Weekly, very good.
Thank you.
I'm not the only one that makes those comments,
Excellent.
and it's very important. But once again, Mark, I want to thank you
You're
for
welcome.
coming to Medfield
Always-
TV and
always a
discussing situations that are existing, because I know that the viewers would like the selectmen just to sit down and talk to them.
Yeah.
That
Sure.
is part of
Yeah.
Medfield. Words become inadequate to the press because that's very obvious. I read it, and I think you people do a very good job.
Thank you.
So I thank both of
You're
you
welcome.
gentlemen, Mark Fisher
Good. Thanks, Jack.
and Josh,
Thank you.
for spending a little time at Medfield TV to bring us up to date in happenings. This is Jack Peterson wishing you and yours the very best. Good night.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.